Good morning. We're joined this morning on the level set by the Mike Jones, all the way back from Africa. Most recently, and Dr. Charles Alexander, with newly minute accomplishments as well. And I'm Larry Fields, and we want to talk a little bit this morning about a couple of issues. We had and have an incredible show planned that we would like to talk about, but the as the adage goes, you can't make news. And this week, with the untimely death of Orenthal James Simpson, it's a topic that bubbles to the top, not just for his celebrity, because Mike Jones will remind us at the end of the day, at his worst, O.J. Simpson was one of the best three running backs that ever tucked a pig skin up under his arm and held it high. And as a former uh, Don Coryell, Eric Coryell fan for the St. Louis Cardinals. He broke my heart on more than one occasion. But we're going to open the show up and talk about Orenthal James Simpson, not just him, but one of your fraternity brothers as well, Dr. Alexander, the brilliance of Johnny Cochran that was on full display when the stakes were highest. This was the O.J. Simpson that we all refer to now, roughly, is the proxy for Black America versus the system. And I want to open it up to the panel. When we talk about O.J. Simpson versus the system, let's define the system for what it is. Let's talk about the system. Let's talk about what it does. Let's talk about O.J. Simpson, but not just O.J. Simpson, but the brilliance of and the just surgery that Johnny Cochran and his team put on to uh, bring the system to honor the rights of what it says on King, as King stated, do what you said you were going to do on paper. And I'll open it up to the floor at this point.
Okay, I'll I'll have to say uh, uh, my one caveat for OJ is the Bronco chase interrupted the Knicks in Houston. And it was either game five or game seven. That was terrible. That I almost locked him up for that. Okay.
Guilty as charged on that one. That was the only one he didn't beat.
Yeah, that's no yeah, right. But having said that, I think you can't talk about him, that whole event, outside of the context of what it means to be black in America, what it means to be white in America. For me, uh, OJ was kind of John the Baptist, uh, Obama's Jesus. Okay, he was the first brother that I'm aware of, maybe Frederick Douglass in the 19th century. Inside of that context, you could argue was that. But in our lifetime, who superseded race as a personality. I mean, fundamentally, uh, OJ's identity as a black man was secondary to who OJ was in America. Um, and his blackness was even secondary to black people. Okay. And he had he had gone to another place. I think the whole incident and the whole trial was really about how black and white Americans see the criminal justice system. Uh, White people see the criminal justice system as a criminal justice system. Uh, Black people understand American jurisprudence as a system that turns us into criminals. And in this instance, Nobody was there. There were no witnesses, and you had the white criminal justice system saying this, the black guy did it, and the black guy said, "I didn't do it. I'm innocent." And that situation replicates itself every day in America, and tens of thousands in the history of America, tens of thousands of black men have been sent to American penitentiary, and they didn't do it. But the system never vindicates them. O.J. Simpson put together the team led by Johnnie Cochran, Larry, that you just talked about, and basically beat the system. Okay, so at almost an existential level, the shock on the part of white people was, how could a black man charged by us beat the system? The cheer on behalf of black people represented somebody black finally beat the system. So relative to at a, call it a sociological level, so that's a correct way to think about it, it was never a question of guilt or innocence, because there's never a question of guilt or innocence when we're being adjudicated. It's always, can you figure out a way to beat the system? Because the system is designed that if you're black, once you're in it, you'll never get out of it. So I think he is an interesting historical figure in modern America for those two reasons. You know, one, his public personality superseded race legitimately. And secondly, when charged with the most lethal outcome a black man could expect, charged with murdering a white woman and a white man, he didn't get convicted. Now, both of those, if you think about American history in the context of American culture, literally those are retrospectively, it's remarkable as Obama getting elected president of the United States. I mean, I almost have to put Obama being president second to OJ getting acquitted.
And in addition to that, the those parallels I call O.J. Adam to Obama being the post figure of Jesus with respect to the backlash that black folks have received. The backlash that we received from both of those episodic issues as it relates to history has been severe and ongoing. Dr. Alexander, what are your thoughts on that situation?
That whole period of time was, that by the time we get to OJ, for me, we're still reeling from the acquittal of the police officers that beat Rodney King.
Right.
And and a lot of us, so step back for a second. So having gone to school down at Morehouse and meeting all these cats from California, my worldview relative to California was in flux, because we always was learning that Cali was carefree and do your thing and da 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 da, and there was just this huge disconnect between an awareness of the Panthers and the thought that you could do whatever you wanted to do in California. And so, as my friendship and brotherhood network started to expand to include California, I start to really, I'm in that space between 85 when I get to Morehouse, and that space to 95, 94, 95, whenever this OJ Simpson stuff kicks off. And that 10-year space, just a great cultural shift in terms of what I even thought about the lives of Black folks in California. And so I grew up, my first memories of football kind of centered around OJ because his record breaking season of 73, I was 6. And so and so as far as for me, he football, right? And so and but there's never been anything, relative to how he's moved, including this circumstance, that has ever shaken my appreciation for him as a football player. And I agree wholeheartedly that he's in the top 3. I think 2,000 yards and 12 to 14 games. It ain't nothing that these guys. It's fun to watch it happen, but it's nothing that makes those things comparable.
And Charles, outdoors in the wintertime in Buffalo, New York.
In Buffalo, right? In Buffalo, and so, but by the time we get to this situation, I'm now in Chicago. I'm in Chicago, and I'm in grad school. I'm pursuing my doctorate, and I had come here in '92, and so again, all of those things centered around the Rodney King circumstance, and those police officers was still hot in my school environment, and so this was just more of the same. And and again, I was very clear as it was going on, because by this time he's retired for a million years by this time, and so I had already separated OJ the individual from OJ the star football player. So whatever he was doing in his personal life didn't necessarily matter to me. But like Mike said, I was watching the game that night, and so when that Bronco took off down the road, it now OJ's a part of my awareness again as as an individual, and I had been listening to the news all day. I slept with my news on, so I knew that something had happened at the residence already, but certainly wasn't expecting the game to be preempted. And but from that point forward, it became a political piece for me, and I had a vested interest in the win. Not negating the humanity of the other people involved or this, that, or the other, but I absolutely internalized that piece and saw this as black men on trial for the murder of a white woman, and in her side piece. That's how I saw it, and that's how I continued to experience it. And that's how I experienced it when I would walk in and out of classes. And as the case progressed, people would literally get louder in their talk when they saw me. Like they would be in the corner mumbling about what they thought about the case, just like this. And then when I walk in the room, they'd be like, "He guilty." They would just say things to irritate me and to provoke me. And because I was one of 2, maybe 3 black men in the program. And so, I was the target of all of their racist projections because they was mad at OJ. And so by the time we get to the verdict, OJ don't just win, we win.
Right.
And that's how I experienced it. That's how I saw it. And that's how I experienced it, in the context of my educational experience. because the white folks was acting out all the time, and so you know, and it's just so much of this stuff is, uh, I was reading something about it, and it was like, and this was the case that created or brought to us Johnny Cochran. No, I already knew who Johnny Cochran was.
We knew who Johnny Cochran was long before
We
that.
knew who Johnny Cochran was. White folks, and the white folks who needed to know knew who Johnny Cochran was, and
Right.
considered him an enemy of the people because of his work on the ground and his work with the Panthers in particular. And so, and so, the whole thing was really, it was interesting then, and it's interesting now, to hear people kind of deal with it, and again, like the trouble that people have with dealing with the complexities of OJ, and even the things that we as Black folks that we heap on him that I don't know that really matters. I mean, it just is what he is, and I do agree with kind of the comparisons, the relative comparisons between wherever he ascended to, relative to race, um, in comparison to Barack Obama. But the whole thing was interesting and continues to be, and the net result of this is going to be some more white folks make some money this week because of OJ passed away.
Charles, you said something that triggered an edit I want to make in my comments, and I think you said, and OJ won. As I thought about it as you were talking, it was Johnny against them. It wasn't OJ against them. OJ just was the subject of the encounter, because he sat there for 3 months or whatever. He didn't say nothing. So the issue was, could Johnny get him? Okay. Yeah. And the other thing, it was Johnny against some mediocre white folks and one mediocre Black neighbor. Okay, and a lot of racist cops. I mean, it was almost made for the television show it became. And you got this brilliant brother going up against the system that once again fields this mediocre team of average to below average professional talent, but they don't need to be good because they're going after the Black man.
Well, they're the system. They're the system. So the system has its guardrails against mediocrity. The guardrails against mediocrity outweigh the candidacy that are prosecuting the case.
Right. So the reality was, you would say Black people will pull in for Johnny. Okay, and he pulled it off. Now, him pulling it off meant that OJ walked. But the issue wasn't OJ, the issue was Johnny. So it was Johnny Cochran. If you're watching this trial and you're talking about it, you're not talking you talk a little bit about OJ, you think he did it, but the Black recaps are about what Cochran and his team did that day. And ultimately, he was validated that he beat them at their game. And that's what that was 200 plus years of oppression that came out. That cheer was a result. We had a day where we won, okay? Despite everything they did, the brother beat him. And that was the Black response to that. Now, we apologize for that now. You got black folks say, well, it was this, and we were trying. It was all that. No, man, we kicked y'all ass that day. Okay,
Yes.
if we didn't win no other day, we won that day.
You know,
And that's the whole thing with it. It's like,
I'm reminded of David Walker's appeal in that sense, when he states, if in fact it gets to warfare, if it's two, it might as well be 20 of them that you take out, because the penalty is going to be the same, and they shall not trifle with you. So
Right.
you shall not trifle with them. These were high stake situations. This was their entire system was on display here, and it was Johnny Cochran. But try being in law school at St. Louis University at the time of this trial. Try being the only black male in your section at the time of this trial, where you have individuals, and that was my reality. And I was and I was a professor at the school as well. So this was such a looming situation. It almost took center stage. And by 2 o'clock, if you hadn't heard about it, somebody would walk up to you. By 2 o'clock, they had some sort of activity in the courtroom in LA, 2 o'clock Central Time. Someone would walk up and indiscretionally state, what's the latest in OJ news? That's how prevalent it was. But after Johnny Cochran was victorious, I can tell you that the aim of many law professors was one thing. We're not going to ever let another one of those get through our system. We're either going to make sure that we eliminate them, or we're going to make sure that we flip them. They want to join the Federalist Society, that's fine. But we will not have Johnny Cochran's coming out of this law school defacing the system that we put in place. And I can tell you, as a law student, I felt the rebuttal instantaneously. It was swift and it was instantaneously. And so, I'd be lying if I say that didn't cause some situations for me professionally as a result of that. So and the way that the system looked at it was the same way it was. The way I looked at that case, OJ was a proxy for Black America for a long time. And we were finally, we wanted to turn the corner on the ability for us to walk into court, to lay the facts out, and to get a just rendering from the court, and in its adjudication. But it was short-lived, and they made sure that we did not see another Johnny Cochran. And with respect to this California situation, that's a folly. It really is a folly. If you read Johnny Cochran's book, and I know you both, are familiar with that, Johnny Cochran has just a litany of examples of just how militaristic the police force was and the Black community, and how oppressive it was in the Black community. His days as a prosecutor, Johnny Cochran said he didn't think he'd ever lose another case in the prosecutor's office, because things were leveled in his favor in such a manner that he almost could have written the verdicts. And the cases that he speaks of in the book, there's a case where the police brutality in California is at a crescendo at all times. So, I mean, the brilliance of Johnny Cochran is where I certainly put my emphasis. And the backlash, I think I don't have a problem with it. I'll take it. I'm not going to cry uncle. I'll take the backlash as long as we continue to fight forward, and we don't relent.
I think a couple of things. He's talking about his life as a prosecutor. I think these days we have to. And this also needs to be one of our show topics. We need to learn to balance out our understanding, and subsequent appreciation for Black folks who come to our attention solely because of their functionary status and subsequent prowess as prosecutors. In this system, you're gonna be good because you're just prosecuting brothers, right? And so we see the rise of folks whose lives turn out other than how Johnny Cochran's lives turned out, because they really were only who they were, and they were literally bottom feeders who worked as prosecutors and achieved all of this recognition from the system for doing the system's bidding. They then get in front of us and we defend and protect them. And then we clap when they become, vice presidents and things of that nature. And so we have to be mindful of this, because this is what happens. And so everybody's narrative clearly don't turn out as Johnny Cochran's. But again, you see the insidious nature of the system because there are things, so I say, I'll talk about the shift that I start to have in that 10 years, and my higher education, but it's not like all of that stuff was new to me. It's that I was intentionally being reprogrammed, right? So again, I had some awareness of the Panthers. I had some awareness that the Panthers were in Cali. But I had more of awareness of Fred Sanford. That's who I was aware of. and so I was
But he was
thinking
from
about
St. Louis now. Fred Sanford from St. Louis.
And so, just as sure as I was watching OJ on Sunday, I was watching Fred and Lamont on Friday night. And so that was my conceptualization of California. And then you add to that, you talked about the militarization of the police. You add to that the made for TV weekly drama SWAT. That's a whole nother level of things, right? Now, why do we even have SWAT? We got SWAT because of the Panthers. That's why SWAT exists. SWAT was created in LA to quell urban insurrection. That's the purpose of SWAT. Coming out of the rise of the Black Panther Party and the Watts riots. That's what all this stuff is. And so you get all of these things, distorting, and it creates for some, quite a level of confusion. And, and then so also in that school period, what do we get? We get colors. And so we get, the West Coast gang piece that, that's giving us. And so it's all of this stuff kind of going on.
Well, you can't, I think that is an entry point that you should not just skim over. I thought about that movie this morning as we were getting the show together, and I can remember me and Donald Gage and a couple other folks had just got back from, we drove from St. Louis back to school. We were living in College Park, and it was the summertime, and we went and saw Colors. And that had to have been in 88, 80, yeah, no, it might have, about 88 or 89, I believe. And I've never left a movie with a migraine headache because I knew what was coming. That broadcast of the gang affiliation spread, it went viral, and we had individuals imitating what they saw on film to the delight of privatization of prisons and criminal attorneys across the United States. And it's spread like wildfire. And I believe that we can certainly use that as one of the major entry points.
Yeah, and so all of that stuff, um, and so when he passed, when OJ passes, it just it kicks up all of this. I mean, at this point, none of that stuff is far from my thoughts. But when OJ passes, it sends me more directly to California than where some of my other interests are in a given moment. But those
But
are all the
Charles,
things that end up being contemplated. Yes, sir.
Charles, one of the things why it's important to do what you're doing, because one of our major structural weaknesses as a people in America is our lack of context for our experience in America. And so we no longer know our story. And most people, everything comes with a story. You got a story, I got a story. So before you can judge who somebody is, you really have to know their story, because their story will tell you why they are where they are and who they are. Don't mean you can't be judgmental, but now you have an empirical basis for making that judgment. And the fallacy in normal thinking of people is we think the story starts when we show up. The story started before you ever got here, and you need to know that story. And Larry mentioned that Kathy and I just got back from Ghana a couple of days ago, and you start to understand the importance of the oral tradition. Because part of what affects the reason the Ashanti are the same people they were from as they understand themselves in the universe is because they tell their story. And the Ashanti child knows the story. He knows the story of the kingdom. He knows the story of his family, of his village. And no matter who shows up, he's been vaccinated and inoculated against the infection of what you could politely call Western propaganda. And so, we used to tell our story, because we had to. We were all together. We used to tell the story. So a Black child, me, I enter adulthood confronting America with a frame of reference that's given to me by Black adults ahead of me to get me ready for what I'm about to do. We got sidetracked, and I know the diversity. What is it? Diversity, equity, inclusion is the big thing. For me, that's just another way of saying integration. And the American concept of integration, diversity, equity, inclusion, requires you to give up the idea of who you are in the universe, which might not be who they are in the universe, because the universe is made up of a lot of galaxies, okay? And it's that loss of identity, and whether it's true or whether it's literally true or metaphorically true. But there was a time where you could say, even if somebody, quote, was a gangster, the things gangsters don't do in the community. Now, I can't tell you how much that's empirically true, but it's part of the Black value system. If you're a
Part of
certain
the
age,
balance. Yes.
huh? It's part of the story. It's part of the story. Okay. And that story informs your ethics, your morals. So sometimes it probably was even true. It comes from someplace. But we don't tell them stories no more. So how we define ourselves are totally a function of American commercialism and the negation of what the Black experience is. So, and to the extent that you're trying to amplify it, you can only amplify it to the volume that it doesn't make white people uncomfortable. So you can't tell your truth because of the discomfort it creates for somebody. And the reason they don't want them to be uncomfortable, because then a current generation of white America who didn't have anything to do with the history of America, because they living now, they wasn't living then, but they don't want them to question the creation myth of America, because if you know the truth, then you have to say, damn, wait a minute, okay, then I know the story, now I understand Larry Fields better. Why? Because I know the story now. Okay. And while I didn't play any part in that, it didn't literally happen to Larry, but we're all in this narrative together. And now I understand the part of the narrative that I inherited. Okay. Just like the part of the narrative Larry inherited. And then the question is, in recognizing that truth, you get to reconciliation, because we all have to make some changes, given the fact that this is part of who we are at this moment. And if we want to be different, we have to behave differently. And that is never an involuntary thing, because somebody profits from all of the dysfunction, all of the oppression, and their interest is in maintaining it. And so their interest is in keeping Black people ignorant and also white people ignorant, because they can't have a white army without ignorant white people.
You know, when
And I think that's the central piece.
when I think of, go ahead, Doc. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That last piece, they can't have an army without ignorant white folks. That, and we either we don't understand it, or we just don't appreciate the truth of that. And so, so we'll say, they're not teaching us. They're not teaching nobody. All of this is propaganda so that they could get done what they need to get done. We think that there's this parallel universe where white folks are smart. No, it don't exist. This is the nature of the battle.
You know, when I was a child, I was watching a war movie with my parents. I must have been, 4 or 5. And I mean, my mom, there was a 20-year difference, 20 years and 1 month difference between me and my mother. And my father was like a 24-year difference. And so, and oftentimes, my parents treated me like almost a toy or a nephew. That's how close the conversations were with me and my mom. Always, of course, respectful, because I'm still afraid of her. But we were watching this war movie, and I asked my mom, I said, well, where do you get people to fight in war? Prisons? Because it just doesn't seem like, I mean, there's nothing that you would do. And I never forget, she said, well, fighting for your country is one of the most patriotical things you could do. It's like, why would why would I do that voluntarily? That's hell. I mean, at 4 years old, I was like, that doesn't look like a good proposition to me. So, I mean, what are you clearing out the jails to do this? No, they wouldn't do that. So, I mean, having said that, you have to go through a full indoctrination. That's why you sing the Star Spangled Banner and pledge allegiance from K through 12. That, there's a great book called Fandom that talks about the association of the military and athletics and how that began. With the outlay of cash from the military. One of the major line items for the military is to fund their exposure at major sporting events. So
Propaganda.
it is a propaganda machine. But Mike, you brought up DEI, and I mean, when I think of DEI, I think of a safety valve. I don't think of anything that is really substantial to the Black community. And, you have maybe 1,000 individuals throughout the United States that have, you know, fairly decent wages for individuals to represent or to work for these corporations that only appear to be there in the event that the corporation runs afoul of things that are certainly uh,
Larry,
potentially violative of their bottom line of some sort that have a racial pinge or a sexual pinge on it. And I can
Larry,
and the arc of individuals in that department is very simple. I think it was summed up best by Dr. Blackstone. When she took the DEI position at a major hospital that I believe was affiliated with Harvard, there is certainly a bell curve. You come in as the pet. When you get your footing, first year you meet everybody. When you attempt to bring in any sort of change that would benefit the community that you're supposed to serve, you become a threat. The next stage is you got to get, and they get you out of there. That's the lifespan of these DEI positions, unless you ride it out and you be that safety valve that aid to human resources, and that typically is what it is.
Larry, and you're old enough and you and Charles are old enough to remember this. DEI is nothing more than the 21st century version of the affirmative action office. Okay, that's all that is. The one brother or sister who's at the company to be the colored person in the event that we need one. Okay, well, and you show up to places to give money to the charity money to the Black organizations. I mean, it's a rather colonial stuff. I mean,
say that needs to be put on a T-shirt. DEI is rather colonial.
Right, it is, man. And wait a minute, and I would not have any problem with us doing it if we was doing it like hustlers. Now we stealing, okay? And while we here, this is what we undermine, because they go catch us pretty soon, and somebody else will take my place. But look, this is where we hid it and stuff. My problem is that we believe this BS. I mean, we actually think this shit matters, okay? No, it don't, man. You us. They lying, we lying, okay? And I just got to figure out how to cheat better than you. So so I can figure out how to turn this into a benefit for me or the people that sent me here. But I don't care about your stuff because you don't care about my stuff. Part of my if you call it theological orientation, I have no requirement to love anybody who don't love me. I mean, just for me, that's irrational. That's like a lion saying, well, them hyenas are okay. Why don't we let them babysit the cubs tonight while we go out hunting? Wouldn't no lion do that? Okay.
Well,
Wouldn't no lion.
no lion would do that because lions understand the demarcation of the of the relationship and who they are.
And we don't, and if we understood as much about who we are as lions understood about who they are, we wouldn't have the problem we have with hyenas now.
We would not. And we wouldn't spend as much time worrying about them.
And we wouldn't spend as much time because lions know what they do. Male lions know what they do if hyenas get too close. They don't even need to meet. Okay.
And so that is, you brought up another topic about, the industries and who, this oral language and who we are. And one of the reasons why the enterprise of gangsters have been able to thrive in our community is, number one, they've protected themselves against outside influences, in order to be successful. Number two, they know who they are. Number three, that is a business that the greater society has allowed to operate in until they want to cash it in. So
But I'll add another one is that the United States is a continuous criminal operation.
it's a criminal enterprise. Well,
Wait a minute.
That's
Charles, I'm gonna say amen, and would you say that again?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, what's more gangster than coming over here and taking this?
And no, nothing.
And so so you have this whole thing centered around the glorification of that theft. You have a whole history. That's why there's a problem with, that's why, they've all of this backlash about what's being taught and making our kids feel guilty and da 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 da, because we're literally, each time that there's actually a bit of truth or honest history or hard history, as Hassan Jeffries is teaching right now, hard history, whenever that occurs, it's like you got a witness on redirect,
right?
And they they can't handle that. they can't manage that, and so all you get otherwise in all of these other different spaces are people and entities really just behaving in the manner that this thing that we call United States government has acted since it's been here. That's it. It's just a replication of that.
And Charles, to follow that thread, my problem and my concern too, it's not even my problem, my concern is we have become the petty bourgeois, okay? We actually believe all of this stuff. Generations of Black people, particularly Black men, there's an expression I heard regularly as a child from listening to older, particularly Black men. And no Black child today will ever hear this phrase. When one old brother asks another, say, man, where you going? And you guys are old enough, you may have heard snatches of this, but regularly, so would hear somebody say, oh, I got to go downtown and lie to these white folks. Okay. Now that was a thing. Okay. That wasn't that was a thing. I got to go down here and lie to these white folks.
Mike,
So,
that's one of the brilliant things I think that we, about Morehouse. There was a brother, he was a noob too, that was recruiting from Goldman Sachs at Morehouse.
Right.
He came to our senior year. We have a seminar on Mondays. Everyone that's majoring in business, that's a senior. There, it may be 100, 125 people in the room. You have Spelman students as well as Morehouse. But we had a brother that came in. He said, "Now look, when I come and recruit you, we're gonna lie to you. You're gonna lie to me." And
It's okay.
you come there, we're gonna figure it out. That's
Yeah,
gone.
and we'll figure it out.
That's
Right.
gone. You're right. It's gone.
Right. Right. So and here's the point. What no moral problem in doing that? That was a necessary prerequisite for you being okay. What you got to do is figure out how. What old folks would tell you was you got to figure out how to be okay. Make it work for you. Well, what about if it don't work for them? That's their problem. That ain't only an enslaved person worries about the welfare of the master. And you have no obligation. You have no moral obligation to treat him better than he's treating you. And you do have a moral obligation to basically create agency for yourself. So whatever it takes for you to create human agency for yourself, you owe yourself that. You owe the people who brought you here that. You owe the children and grandchildren. You go ahead. You owe them claiming your agency. And if that means you got to disadvantage somebody else, hey man, that's just the way the world works. Okay, and I am a fan of certain things, and I got this thing, the history of the Peloponnesian War about Thucydides. It's the civil war between Greece and Sparta 2,300 years ago, and there's a thing in it called the Millennium Dialogue, and it's where the Athens ambassador goes to Milos to tell Milos that they got to give up this alliance they got with Sparta because it's too close to Greece, and the Greek, we can't have that.
Kind of like a Ukraine situation, huh?
Yeah, right. It's gangster situation.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, so you got to give this up. And the people of Milos say, look, man, we got this deal. We gave our word, blah, blah. So they're going back and forth. He's trying to explain it. They're trying to explain it. So at the end of it, the cat from Milos say, well, it just wouldn't be right if we broke the alliance. And the Greek ambassador smiled and basically said, my man, I'm not going to waste your time now. Because as we both know, the issue of right is only a question among equals in power. Hear me now. The strong do what they will. The weak suffer what they must. That's it. So ain't but one rule. Don't be weak if you can avoid it.
And that's a heck of a rule. That's a heck of a rule.
So the issue of ethics and morality are questions in a philosophy class or theological, they ain't a question in the way the world operates.
Not at all. Not at all. I'd like to shift topics just a little bit. And I'm not, this is certainly improvisation. I'm not sure if you saw the movie. Either of you all saw the movie, surely. But Mike and Doc, I'm sure you all have a historical bent on that. I just want to sort of get your take on one thing specifically, and that was her running for president at that time. What that meant to us, if you know, what are the takeaways from that, and what can be learned from that if we try, as we try and tie, a string between O.J. Simpson and Shirley Chisholm. But the takeaways in these watershed moments are possible, if any.
I would say, I mean, again, so this is 72. Again, I'm 5. So all of this stuff is happening, at this time, right? And so I think you got to just think how hot it was at that time, and the decision is made for her to run. And it ain't like she had been in Congress for some long, extended period of time and had done all this work, right? And so it was really just kind of like the dynamics of the time, and and having read up on her previously, and then kind of watched the dramatization and the movie. Like again, it's very hard to just look and say, okay, well, she ran for president. I mean, she did this 4 years after the murder of Martin Luther King. They were assassinating Black leaders and incarcerating and infiltrating Black organizations. And this is to say, I'm about to run for president. I mean, I know people don't contextualize it like that. That's just not what we do. We compartmentalize. We don't contextualize. And so we have all of these things that just happen in their own independent space, right? And so that's why things were all frayed. And so, so when we fast forward, when we get, how does this relate to OJ? It relates to OJ in a way similar to how it relates to Barack Obama. I'm not running for the presidency of Black folks. I'm running for the presidency of all folks. Barack wasn't the first to say that. She said some stuff like that too, right? But I just don't know that you could be realistic in that space, right? I understand why you might feel you need to say it, but I don't know that you could be realistic in that space. And this thought, so how does that then relate to OJ? This thought and belief that he, that the ascendancy, you can ascend and become, above your Blackness. It don't work that way. So she couldn't be no more than Black, and she couldn't be no more than a woman. That's about as good as it gets.
Which one was most harmful? Which one was most harmful?
I don't know. Because I think in the final piece of it, I think a bunch of folks made some decisions. A bunch of folks who look like her made some decisions based on their political, their political advantage. Now so even with that, I think we gotta shape, because the one problem with the movie is that it's gonna lead X number of Negroes to believe that she was on the verge of winning, and then the guy sold her out. That's gonna be the problem.
In the movie, Ron Dellum sells her out if she was on the verge.
Right. That she was about to be the president, but Ron Dellum and Walter Fauntroy sold her out. That's not what happened. But that's how we watch TV.
Had she won a single delegate to that point?
Right. So they was hustling delegates, and so people are going to misunderstand that. And so that's why I'm saying I don't know that it was one or the other. I think it's the combination of both. And
let me ask this, Doc.
We're going to be president.
Let me ask this, Doc, and I'll ask this to both of you all. Had she been a male with the Gary Convention, which was going on during her run, had she been a Black male, would they have endorsed her? Or in
He
the
didn't go.
that's what I'm
If
saying.
they,
Let me finish my
if
question,
you
sir.
ain't gonna
Let me
go,
let me
then
finish let me finish my question, sir. Let me finish my question, sir. Or or was that incumbent upon her setting foot at the convention, and that was the
that
reason? Okay.
that
Let
that
wait, wait a minute. Let me. I got a unique
I know you
context.
you was there.
was in the
Yeah, well, I
mix.
was grown anyway.
You
I
was
was
In the
grown in
mix.
grown.
1972,
Yes.
but I spent the last 40 plus years of my life as a professional politician, a professional black politician. And black professional is a compound noun. I can't separate the black from the professional. Now, both of you brothers are professionals in your work. Okay, Larry is a lawyer, you as a psychologist, and you know, as a professional, you operate inside of certain bounds and context. Now, people that ain't professional can make shit up and they show up and they can do whatever they want. But when you're a professional, it really can't work like that, because you're also in this with other professionals. So one of the things, not then, but later on, before I ever get elected the first time in '81, I'm probably in my 20s and I'm taking politics serious. You know, me and Elbert and some others, we Marlo looking for some corners to take, okay, politically, okay, and a lifelong friend, Chink Washington, who was older than me, had been in the game a long time, a couple of different games. But anyway, one day he told me, we were talking, and then he just said this because he knew what I did in college, and I had all of the fire. And he told me, he said, Michael, you're going to have to decide if you want to be a civil rights leader or a politician, okay? Because you can't be both at the same time. And he didn't say which one I ought to choose. He just said, you're going to have to choose. And a misnomer, there was a time before, and I consider campaign consultants the equivalent of pimps. So before pimps took over the game, it kind of ran like the mafia, okay? There was the white gangsters and the black politicians were Bumpy Johnson, okay? And they did business. So all them first black judges and all the stuff that you see that would happen, them was deals that were cut to get you in Chicago, so you know what I'm talking about. How you get to be a judge? Well, you got to go see. So we go get some black. Matter of fact, we got more black judges and stuff like that when we was doing deals on the side in the exchange for black political support. This is what we get. And then we had civil rights leaders, and Shirley Chisholm would be the first one that Ron Dellums didn't double cross. I haven't seen the movie, but I've heard about it. But let me tell you what happened. He didn't ask nobody to run. He didn't say, hey, I'm thinking about running for president for these reasons. And Jesse Jackson is frat. And here's what Coleman Young and Marion Barry said. I know Marion Barry said it when Jesse ran for president the first time. And that is, Jesse don't know how to run nothing but his mouth. Now, here's what happens when people do that. Since y'all don't know nothing about politics, y'all get really excited. We gonna have a black president. And so now I'm sitting in a caucus in 1980. Bill Clay can't have a conversation with the Democratic president. candidates that want to be president to leverage whatever you can leverage. Because we all got to sit here and be with Jesse, because if we wasn't with Jesse, y'all be crazy. So you take everybody out the game with that entrepreneurial individual BS.
No,
Like
Mike,
somehow,
Mike,
huh?
I don't think that you said that loud enough and clearly enough. So I want to go over that again. So what
Okay, ask me the question.
so what you just said was when Jesse ran for president, you've got all the black power brokers that are politicians that have been cutting deals and strengthening the community by disseminating blacks into powerful positions. Their attention now has to go away from the individuals that are going to ultimately wind up with the power. We know that they're going to ultimately wind up with the power, and give attention to a candidate that is a losing candidate, or you're going to offend, the politicians are going to offend the people that sent them to these places.
That exact. Here is you guys might remember the name Benny Goins. Benjamin
Yes.
Goins was the first black elected official in St. Louis. He was also the committeeman of the 21st Ward. And that's the ward I grew up in and became alderman. And Benny and Bill were the two biggest black power brokers of my emerging political foray into politics. So 1975, Elbert won. That's how we got into politics. Elbert said there's 4 white guys running for president of the Board of Aldermen. I think I can win. I don't know nothing. He don't know nothing either. But we want to be somebody. So we put this campaign up. We actually thought we could win. We get our butt kicked, but we do well. We do better than they thought we was going to do. So Benny has reached out to me, and he says Ben wants to talk to Walton. This is after we lose, right? Because it looks like, you know what? It looks like y'all can play, okay? Since y'all ain't in line with anybody, you know, because that's the way politics work, okay? You know, yeah, I want to have a talk. So we're in the back room of the 21st Ward. I'm all of 25, 26 years old. And I'm saying, damn, I'm in the back room and I'm going to find out what goes on. But you want to be in the room where it happens. So it's a Saturday morning and it's me, Benny, and Elbert, just the 3 of us. And Elbert, we're talking and chatting, and he asked Elbert, he said, Walton, do you know why I didn't support you for president of the Board of Aldermen? And Elbert said, no, I was trying to figure that out. And Benny just looked at him and said, because you wasn't going to win. Okay, and this is the business about picking the winner, not picking losers. And you were going to lose. He said, but I got a question for you though, son. Why did you even run? And Elbert kind of stuttered. Yeah. He said, well, I wanted to get my name out. And Benny smiled and looked at him. He said, hell, you can get your name out by robbing a bank. I mean, this ain't the way you do politics. My first political lesson, okay? That this is a business. This is how this thing goes. It's the difference between playing pickup basketball and being coached and being on a team that's trying to win a game. So totally different. And you learn the discipline of it. You learn there ain't no emotions in it. It's Bill Clay saying ain't no friends, ain't no enemies, just interest. And that's how you do the business. It's the business of politics. It ain't Jesse giving no speech. And there's the power structure and that's what's got decimated is that politics doesn't work like that anymore. But fundamentally, you now have people who occupy the space but don't know why they're there, don't know what they came there for. And basically, you remember, and if somebody wants to know, well, how did you get in the game? You remember year 3 in the Wire, where Mike and the rest of his little crew didn't have money for back to school stuff, and Chris comes over, and Marlowe's over there on the corner, and Chris comes over, wants to give them some money. He said, Marlowe wants y'all to have this. And they all take the money except Mike.
Mike said no.
He said, no, that's all right. Okay. And Chris goes back over to Marlowe, and Marlowe comes over to see Mike. And he said, you don't want to money? He said, no, I don't want to money. He said, do you know who I am? And Mike said, yeah, I know who you are. I still don't want. I'm good. See, he said, okay. And I don't know if Chris said it or Marlowe. He said, but if you ever need a favor, if you ever need something, you can come to us. And they walk away. And Marlowe tells Chris, watch that one, because that puppy got big paws. And we all know a puppy with big paws gonna be a big dog one day. And that's what people are looking for. They're looking for puppies with big paws, so they can teach them how to be a big dog. Because if you ain't got no dog in you, you can't do this. And when people ask me, what's the first thing I got to do if I want to be a politician, if I'm serious about politics, I say quit going to Sunday school, because it ain't nothing you're going to learn in Sunday school will help you get none of this done. And the only moral decision you really got is, do you want to do it? But once you decide to do it, the game is the game. So if you ain't built like that, if you ain't got that kind of heart, don't mess with this, man, because all you're going to do is mess it up.
Well, I don't think we need any further closing comments. The game is the game, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Alexander, is there anything pressing?
No, the game is the game.
Game is the game. And that's how we're going to end this one. I'd like to thank you all for listening to us, and place your comments and your likes on the YouTube channel, and reach out to us directly if you have any questions. We look forward to seeing you all next week if it's the Lord's will. Yeah, thank you.